And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And, change is a good thing, right? We hear that a lot. Change is good. And then I look at some of the things I've been considering changing in my life here the last couple of weeks. And it's like, what the heck am I doing? Why am I even looking at this? Right? Change is an awesome thing. And I've been making a lot of changes in my life dealing with organization. I talked about that on the podcast at the beginning of the year, right? And this has been great. I've been getting a little bit more organized and all of this stuff, and that's been awesome because organization is a wonderful thing, right? But I've got this itch to start tinkering with stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be changed, right? This is definitely one of those, if it's not broke, fix it until it is. Right? So it's a really weird place for me to be here, but here I am. I'm going to tell you about a couple of these things because one, it's kind of fun, but two, it's like, I know I can't be the only one dealing with a change for change's sake, right? So the first one actually makes a little bit of sense, okay? One of the things I'm looking at is changing where I'm running the Music Free Gaming website. Okay. Right now I'm running it off my own server. We can get into the technical details at some point, probably not today. Other than to say, I'm running it on my own server. I have full control over everything on the site. I've hand coded the HTML, which is why it looks a little funky. Web design is not high on my list of talents. It's not bad. It's just I'm not a website designer by trade, and so it's kind of okay. But one of the things I'm looking at doing is potentially moving the full site over to Fourth Wall. Now, Fourth Wall is where I currently have my merch store, right? So if you go to store.musicfreegaming.com, you can kind of see what's there. And no, this isn't a plug to get you all to go look at the merch store, but you could. People who sign up for memberships get early access to the audio version of the podcast, so there's that. But no, but I joke, but that's actually one of the reasons I'm looking at moving the site to Fourth Wall. It's because there would be tighter integration with the website and things like merch, memberships there, that type of thing. I can build a little bit nicer interface. I mean, it's got a nicer interface for updating, though what I have isn't bad at all. And I can get some nicer site layouts and do some things that ultimately I think just would look better, right? That's kind of it. The biggest reason for the move is actually the integrations with what Fourth Wall is actually doing for me, which is merch and memberships. Yes, I also have memberships over on Ko-fi. I've talked about that before. That's not going away, but being able to integrate the merch would be really cool. Okay, so that one at least makes sense. There are reasons I'm hesitating is I really like having full control over the website, right? It's okay. I'm going to get slightly technical here. The website is built using a static website generator. So basically, I can go in, I can type up any posts I need if I were to post something, and I can hack that out in Markdown format, similar to what a lot of wikis and stuff use. Reddit, for example, a lot of sites use Markdown, right? And then I could post that and it's fine. But the reality is I don't do any of that on musicfreegaming.com. What I do is, yes, I've got a few pages where I've got some HTML set up so that I can do oh, I'm embedding the YouTube videos, and here I'm embedding this, and here I'm doing that, right? It is all just static HTML. And that's fine. I mean, it works. It's fine. The site itself is not bad. But so I kind of like the idea of moving it to fourth wall. Now, having it separate means that if I decide to not use fourth wall anymore, it's an easier migration back. But, wasn't a hard transition in the first place. So, right, I've got options. But I don't have any real driving need to make the move. But at least that one has some logic to it, okay? There are some reasons. There are valid reasons why I'm actually considering that change. Okay, cool. Now, obviously, if I were to make the move, there's a lot of work I need to do on fourth wall. I'm not 100% happy with the site layout and stuff, but that's a problem for future me. The other issue I have, and the other place I'm looking to change, I have no compelling reason to do this, but it doesn't mean I'm going to not. So, I like feed readers. All right. This is sort of a holdover from early internet days. Every website on the internet had, or the vast majority of them, had an RSS feed or an Atom feed. It was and for those of you who've never dealt with these before, it was a way of syndicating your content all over the place. Now, the original goal was that you could take your feed or a feed from somebody else's website and then have it syndicated to yours really easily. RSS is really simple syndication, okay? That existed, okay? And it's used a lot. I mean, that's how podcasts work behind the scenes, is they use, podcasts use an RSS feed. So if you go to the actual link for the show on Acast, you can see, oh, there's an RSS feed. You can grab it, and so that you can pull it into any podcast platform, any podcast player. This is how I get my podcast out to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and on all of that stuff, right? Okay, so RSS is really cool. I use it to easily follow a bunch of websites, okay? And right now what I'm using is a site called Feedly. And Feedly.com is an excellent site. Not sponsored, especially since I'm talking about wanting to move away from them. But it's cool because you can then pull up, here are the headlines, here are the news articles from a bunch of different places, right? Oh, I still keep a light eye on what the Denver Broncos are doing. So I've got the feed from the Denver Post about the Broncos. I haven't watched the Broncos play for, I don't know, 5 years or something like that. 2017, so it's 6-7 years. It's been a while, right? But I still kind of like to keep up a little bit with what they're doing, right? I've got feeds for, here's Colorado news and politics, and because while I'm well past my political activist days, and I don't like to engage in politics, right? I'm not getting into internet discussions. I still have strong political views, but and political theory fascinates me. So I like to keep I like to be informed. So I have a bunch of websites I've got for politics. There's some news. There's a bunch of stuff like that I like to follow. Okay, so I've got a feed reader, or I've got Feedly. I pull all of these articles into Feedly, and I just go with that. Okay? And it works. It works great. Seriously, it works. It's fabulous. The website's good. Mobile interface is great. It's got a couple of, it injects articles that are actually ads with some of the, when you're looking at a feed, which is fine. right? I'm using the free version. I expect some form of payment, and Feedly is probably tracking everything I do. That last one actually is a legit concern for maybe wanting to move. But to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. Okay? It really, really isn't. Okay? Now, why am I even thinking about moving? All right. That's I'm to be honest, I'm not 100% sure on this one, but go with me on this journey. So, when I started my organization quest, I started using Emacs for notes and task tracking and agendas and all of this stuff, right? Again, I talked about that back on the podcast a few weeks ago. And it's great. I mean, I love Emacs. It's the organization stuff's been working pretty well for me. What's not working well is my own habit building. I'm still working on that. But I kind of live in Emacs at work, and the problem I've had at home, wanting to use it more for like building the notes and stuff for the podcast, for the videos and stuff that I do, is I just wasn't using it. So I would often pull out Notepad and to do my notes for videos and things. Well, now that I'm using it for all of my agendas and organization and all of that stuff, now I'm in it. I've got it open all the time. So it makes more sense that I've got my show notes for this podcast up right now. So I could go through, oh, look, here's my outline of what I'm talking about. And then I also have in this same document, I've got my tasks. Okay, I need to record the podcast. I need to edit it, create the thumbnails, upload the videos, right? All of the stuff that goes into the lifespan of this podcast, right? It's all right here, and it's lovely. Well, since I'm in Emacs all the time, it has a really good feed reader called lfeed. So I said, why not use Emacs for my feed reader? And I don't need to. I've got a perfectly valid and excellent feed reader over here on Feedly. But I like Emacs, and lfeed is great. And now, the catch is, I don't know that I can actually have a better experience than what I'm getting in lfeed with Emacs. I mean, I read a lot of my feeds on my phone, right? Sometimes I'll be sitting down at lunch and I'll pull up my news feeds on my phone, which is not Emacs, which is a desktop application, right? It's sometimes if I'm somewhere, like if I haven't done it much lately because my kids are all out of it, but when they were in dance, we'd take them to dance, and then we'd sort of wait in line. And it was like an hour because the kids had to be there early. But, at least we're at the front of the line or near it. We can get good seats when we get into the theater, right? All of that stuff. So I'd pull up Feedly and on my phone, and I'd read the news and stuff. And it works out great. Or sometimes when I'm waiting for my breakfast to cook in the microwave, I'll scroll Feedly. Again, that's not at my desk, and it's not in Emacs. There are solutions, but I'm not entirely sure this is the route I want to go, right? I mean, it's fine. It'll be great when I'm actually at my desk and using it. It could be really cool. But to make it all work so that I could use my phone and stuff, I have to set up my own self-hosted version of Feedly. not Feedly specifically, but an app like that. Something like Tiny RSS or Fresh RSS, something like that. You know, and I spent 2 hours last night. I went to bed way later than I should have, because when I get in problem solving mode, I just don't sleep. It's like, oh, I refer to it, this came out of the times when I was playing Civilization. It's the one more turn-ism, where it's like, oh, one more turn. Let me just do this one more thing and then I'll go to bed. And then 3 hours later, I'm still doing the thing, right? Same problem, right? I get focused on a task and I just want to work on the task. Great. Which, given that I've had a hard time focusing on stuff this week, was kind of refreshing. So yeah, I spent last night working on, I forgot what it was, mini something, but and it didn't work the way I wanted it to. That's fine, but I'm still, it's like, all right, well, that's fine. I'll just fire up Fresh RSS and let's see what that does. But I keep coming back to the original point of, why am I doing this again? Feedly works. Actually, Feedly would work better because Feedly has integrations with Reddit. Now, I don't read a lot of Reddit, but there are a couple of channels that I do read, and Feedly's got the API link, so they just show up as part of the feed. And I can't really do that on my own. Now, and that's mostly because of Reddit's stupid API changes. Okay. I'd like to find a good alternative. I haven't spent a lot of time looking, because I really don't spend a lot of time on Reddit. So there are really about 4 channels that I look at regularly for Reddit. There are 5 maybe. There's the Redstone and Create Mod subreddits. There's Hermitcraft subreddit. There's one for electric vehicles, and there's one for I follow the news subreddit. Okay, just because it's got a nice smattering of just general things going on around the country. Okay. And that's it. You know, and the news one especially was kind of nice to have show up in my feeds, which I can't do using the tools I want to use. Now, if I were using the built-in RSS reader in the Brave browser, I can, because you can pull the Reddit RSS feeds if you're logged into Reddit. But a website with a back-end script that's pulling the feeds isn't logged into Reddit. It just doesn't work that way. So, thanks, guys. So yeah, it's a problem. I'm looking at this and it's like, I will probably have a worse experience for some of my use cases if I do this, but I still want to do it. I don't know why. Why the heck am I still stuck on this? Okay, this is a problem, right? So maybe I just need to prove to myself that it's a problem, right? So I don't know. But whatever it is, change is a thing. And I go through these periods, you know, usually every couple of years. I'll go through a stage where it's like, I'm not entirely sure that what I'm doing is wrong, but let's go see if I can make it better. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Right? The organization one is definitely better. I recently, I have a weird use case at work. Admittedly, this is a me problem. Okay. Where I work, we use Google for our email. Okay. So I can log into Gmail, and the Gmail interface is fine, and I can use it for email. Heck, my personal mail's on Google too. Right? I use Gmail a lot. And it works fine for dealing with individual messages. Okay? Right? So if I've got a thread I want to read, it's okay with that. Right? But that sort of use case is great. But I also get a lot of email from the servers I manage. Okay? I get I get emailed like a daily log. It's the kind of thing that goes through the logs and highlights things that I need to be aware of. I've got alerts that show up in my email. A bunch of automated stuff, which is really hard to deal with in Google, in Gmail, because some of it, Gmail likes to cut off long messages for some reason. So there's a lot of the messages I'll get, and I need to see the whole thing, but Gmail by default won't show it to me. So then it's another click, and then it pops up another thing. It's a real hassle. And then sometimes there's a lot of mail I just want to purge. I've got there's a number of mailing lists I'm on at work. And these aren't your sales spam lists. These are the old school email lists, where people have discussions on the list about whatever it is the list is about, right? So I'm subscribed to like the CEF mailing list. I'm subscribed to a number of others, right? Well, often I don't need to read them. I'm not going to read every message that comes across the list. Most of the time, I'm just scanning the headlines and subjects. Like, oh, this thread looks interesting. Let's follow this thread. Just jump into it and see what's going on here. But most of the time, I don't need to. So it's a lot of select all, delete. Okay. That gets really tedious in Gmail. Okay. So, and then I've got the same thing with my logs at work. Once I'm done reading through the emails, I then need to refile them and do some other things with them. So Gmail is not good for that. So I've always had a separate mail reader at work just for dealing with those logs in a nicer way. This is a professional problem. Okay. This is a problem for me as a professional. All right. Well, what I had was working kind of, but there were some issues because Google's changing some things on the back end. They're getting rid of application passwords and stuff like that. And not all of the tools I use work well with that system. Okay. So I had to make some changes because of that. And I ended up moving my email back into Emacs. Remember I said I live in Emacs at work? Yeah, this is pretty much it. And it took a little time, but it actually was a benefit for me, right? I am more effective because of the change. Now, there are a couple of places where I've hit, it's like, ooh, forwarding the messages, I'm doing this wrong. I need to remember how this actually works. Okay. Like I was forwarding a message to a coworker. It was a Google announcement. They're making some changes. I needed to let our support services people know that things were changing. So I forwarded the mail. Well, it was an HTML message, and when I forwarded it, it stripped all of the links out. I sent it in just plain text because that's what it does. It can handle HTML mail, but when I forwarded it, it was just text. So half the links that were useful for our support services lead weren't in the message that I sent. So I still have some things I need to remember. I know this can do this. How does this work again? I know this is a thing. Okay, but all of that said, this was a good change for me, right? Looking at these feeds, I don't know that it's going to be a good change, but I still can't get off this, like, I need to try this. And it may just be, okay, I need to try this and prove to myself it's not going to work. But it might work. I might love it, right? There's certainly a lot to be said for that. So I don't know. So I'm gonna play with it. We're gonna see what it does, but I have no compelling reason to make this change. It's a change that I want to do because I want to do it. I said, and it could be just, hey, I'm living in Emacs more now. It'd be nice to bring more of my life into it because I just like the experience. So maybe that's it. And yes, there are some privacy benefits of doing it myself rather than using a site like Feedly, because anytime you're using a free service, you're still paying for it in some way. And that usually it's through some sort of privacy issue. Okay. They're reading your email and tracking your habits that way, mining it for what are you interested in, right? Those types of things. Feedly is 100% tracking my reading habits and using that to build some form of advertising profile, right? I know this. I am aware of this, okay? I am not blind to this thing, right? And yeah, Feedly does have integrations. It does have things. If I were to pay for it, there's some other things. But I'm not going to pay for it, right? So do I get a better experience with something else? I don't know, and I'm going to try. And I fully expect it to be a little bit painful. This isn't the first time I've done this either. I have run my own feed reader in the past and I mean web-based feed reader in the past, when Google shut down their very excellent Google Reader. Man, I still question that move. But when Google shut that down, it left a lot of people scrambling for feed readers, myself included. And since I run a server, it's like, well, I could do this, right? I've got options. So I did. I set up Tiny, and it worked. But, I still had to do app maintenance on it, right? I do enough app maintenance on stuff at work. I don't necessarily want to do it at home. It's one of the reasons I got my kids Chromebooks. It's because I didn't want to deal with managing another computer, their Windows box, right? So, yeah, it's just a thing, okay? It's 100% a thing. It's a me thing. Where it's like, I know this is probably going to be a pain. I may be back on Feedly again in a couple of months. But I've got to do, I am so stuck on this. So, I don't know. Change is fun. Not all change is good, it turns out. But sometimes you're just compelled. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So, we'll see how it goes. I will probably be messing with this a bunch this weekend because, again, I'm a little bit obsessed with it. But let me know, what do you change in your life? Are those do you have things that you look at, oh, I have to change this, or I have to start doing this way just because, right? Or what are you changing that's worked out better for you, right? Have you started using a new planner or new organization thing? Did you reorganize your cupboards and now they're much better to use, right? It's easier to get at stuff. I don't know, let me know. Drop a comment down on the YouTube video or join the Discord and let me know, because I'm really curious about this stuff. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Gaming signing off. Except it's Music Free Static signing off. But, you know, I've been talking about gaming a lot. Anyway, this is Music Free Static signing off.